On today's Tune In and Tune Up, we're going to tune up those muscles. Now, let's not use mine as a good example. I brought George Griffith here with us. He's the best person to tell us how to tune up our bodies and get things in shape. George, welcome.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good to be here.
Good to see you once again.
Absolutely. It's been a while.
A long while. But we're going to see if we can correct that.
Right.
A lot of us have spent a considerable amount of time away from the gym since the pandemic. In fact, during the pandemic, most people found themselves staying indoors. We saw some families getting together and going out into their backyards and onto the front roads and doing their own little thing. But the gym basically became a ghost town.
Right.
How has things been since the pandemic in terms of the level of operation, the level of commitment to a fitness gym, so to speak?
I think we're only now starting to see pre-pandemic traffic coming back into the club.
Okay.
I think obviously the gyms were the first to close and one of the last to reopen. And a lot of time the narrative was that gyms were dangerous places for anyone who was worried about the virus. So even after the rest of the island, the rest of the communities opened up, a lot of persons were still very hesitant to come back to the gyms for fear of, getting ill or what, especially the older population. And we as a brand, we've been in business for quite a few years, and a lot of our membership has grown along with us. So we tend to skew a little older than most clubs on the island, I think. So I think we might have been affected by it, more significantly than some of the other clubs.
Okay.
But I think now we're back. Our senior fitness program is running again. We're seeing a lot of faces that we haven't seen for a little while. So I think things are starting to get back on track.
You mentioned senior fitness. Let's take a look at fitness for those within their golden years, first of all. How different is that from our typical adult?
It is different, but not as different as we think. So previously we thought that, there was a progressive decline in resting metabolic rate as you got older. And people attributed this to why we start to put on weight as we get into our 40s and 50s and so on. But there's a large body of research now showing that there's no real difference in resting metabolism from 20 to 60.
Really?
Yeah, so all through those years, people's metabolism stay pretty much stable. And any weight gain is due to a lack of activity and declining activity levels amongst the population, as well as obviously, increasing nutritional intake. So yeah, between 20 and 60, if you're gaining weight, it's not because your metabolism is slowing down. It's because maybe you're not moving as often as you were before and maybe eating a little bit more than you were.
So I can't sit down and blame anything on menopause?
Not until, not in the short term. So definitely after 60, yes.
Okay.
But the changes, the decline we see tends to be a decline that's associated with a loss of muscle tissue.
Okay.
And that's due to obviously inactivity levels. If I was very active in my earlier years and I kept a certain muscle tissue on my body, then that keeps my metabolism high. As I become less and less active, I start to atrophy, it's called, losing muscle tissue. And with less muscle tissue, then there's going to be a corresponding reduction in metabolic rate. But it's not due to aging, it's due to loss of muscle tissue.
Wow. So does that then speak true to the phrase muscle memory?
We can use it in this context, but muscle memory tends to speak to, going back to old activities and starting over. And it does have a place here because I think persons feel like once they fall off the wagon that they're off forever. They're on a program, life comes up, life gets in the way, they're challenged for a little bit, they miss the gym for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even 4 weeks, and they think, well, I can't go back now because I would lose everything that I've gained. And it doesn't work like that. And people need to give themselves a little bit of grace, While it would be nice for everybody to be in the gym 3 or 4 times a week, nonstop, year-round, things come up. And not everybody has the access to a facility. Not everyone has a child support. Not everyone always has the motivation. Right. So if you fall off the wagon, don't be too hard on yourself. Just, tomorrow is day one. Just get back on it and start moving again and start to get yourself those health benefits.
How has the practices, fitness practices, changed over the years?
Well, I would say that, fitness evolved from two distinct areas. One was the Jovita bodybuilding area,
Okay.
and the other was the Jane Fonda aerobics area, right?
I
So,
remember
yeah,
that.
the leg warmers, and yeah,
And all these spandex outfits that look
exactly.
like
I mean, it's a
swimsuits.
good time. It was a good time, but
I used to put on the stuff and put the mat out on the floor in the living
exactly.
room and do everything that they said.
And then there was a program. I even had a program here on CBC. I had a program called the Breakfast Jam. Before me, it was Maureen Surfleet. She had Shape Up with Maureen. So there was a very, distinct idea of what fitness was. You were either, and it was very much divided by gender as well. You either had the guys in the gym lifting heavy weights, trying to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you had the ladies not wanting to lift weights because they didn't want to, inverted commas, get too bulky, and they were doing mostly cardio and aerobics and dance classes. As time has gone on, we've started to realize that a lot of the practices that bodybuilders had aren't really the best practices for the normal individual. Bodybuilders were trying to gain as much muscle as possible, lifting very, very heavy weights, and over time that's going to wear on your body. So now most of the fitness practices you see are more general to try and improve people's normal everyday function, so that you're not getting stronger and fitter to do stuff in the gym, but you're using it as a tool to prepare yourself to do more things with your family, to get outside and play on the beach with your kids, to go out in the garden and do some work. So it's not just fitness for fitness sake now, it's fitness for enhancing your everyday activities in life.
Well said. Now, I told a couple people that you were going to be here, so we got a couple questions that came in, and I thought I'd share a couple with you. Dear George, I started going to my neighborhood gym recently, and for the first 6 weeks, I started to see significant difference in my body. This is now my 3rd month, however, but I seem to have plateaued. How can I fix this?
Well, it's a simple question, but it's a difficult one as well. Where is the plateau coming from? So, for example, did they see lots of good improvements in their cardiovascular fitness, and now that's plateaued? Did they see their bodies losing weight, and now that's plateaued? Or was it a case that they started to see some muscle grow, and now that's plateaued? You see lots of changes really rapidly in the first 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
You get really strong really quickly, but it's not necessarily because you're adding a lot of muscle tissue. It's what we call, I'm using some big words here, improve neuromuscular facilitation. And if you break it down, neuro meaning brain, muscular meaning muscles, and facilitation just being able to do it. So by repeating these movements, you get better at performing them. You get more efficient at performing them. And you can get strong without adding any muscle mass. Same thing with your cardiovascular fitness. In the initial stages, just moving your body weight is enough to give you a little bit of a stimulus, but your body gets very used to that very quickly. So after that first 6-week period, now we really have to try to increase the loads you're using if you want to get stronger. You might have to make some additional changes to your nutrition if you want to get leaner, and you might have to up the intensity if you want to improve your cardiovascular fitness.
Do I really need to change what I eat in order to lose weight?
Yes, is the short answer. So it's calories in versus calories out. Okay, that's the overarching principle. We can't change the laws of physics. Okay. So if it's a straight matter of trying to lose weight, we need to put our bodies in what's called a calorie deficit, which means that our bodies are burning more calories than they're taking in. So from that perspective, if your normal daily habits and your everyday activities have you eating, let's say, 3,000 calories a day, I'm just calling numbers, and your weight has stabilized at 150 pounds, then that 3,000 calories that you're taking in is matching your weight and your activity. Now, if you want to lose weight, you either have to do one or two things. You either have to increase your activity level or you have to reduce your caloric intake. So, yeah, you can't, you hear this phrase all the time, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. Because when you compare the calorie expenditure, for example, like spending an hour on a treadmill, right? Somebody your size might be on a treadmill and burn 400 calories. And then you're going to have one slice of Bajan sweetbread, that's 300 calories. One Coke, 330 calories. These are significant. It's almost unfair. The
You
amount of
just made me
energy.
feel
I'm
bad. You
telling you,
said
it's the truth, though.
one
One
slice.
slice. One slice.
What about
And
people who buy a sweet bread for
and eat
themselves?
the whole thing with cheese. This is part of the issue, right? So, it's almost unfair how much energy you get from the foods you eat compared to how little energy you get from the exercise you do. And the more you do the exercise, the more efficient you become at the exercise, the fewer calories your body burns because it's better at it now. So it uses less energy to do the same activity. So it definitely has to be a multi-pronged approach where you're looking at what you're putting into your body as well as what you're putting out of your body.
Wow. This other question that came in. Hi, George. I've been a gym junkie for years. I've roughly been the same size all my life. But since I started going through the early stages of menopause, I just seem to be gaining weight. I think you touched on this. I still exercise, but my routine is not working like before. What can I do to get a hand on things?
Change your routine. Change your routine is the quickest and easiest solution because the things that this lady's been doing up until this point, her body's become probably very accustomed to them. Her body is able to deal with this stimulus because this is a stimulus that she's had for a long time. She calls it her routine. So the way to burn more calories at an activity is to be, inverted commas, bad at it. Like if you went to play tennis, you never played tennis before, the ball would bounce in front of you, you would swing too hard, you'd be running past the ball and all these things. You'd be very inefficient, right? So inefficiency means I'm using a lot of energy to do something that I should be using less energy for. So changing up her routine, mixing it up, getting out and trying some new things will help to increase that calorie burn and maybe get her back on track.
Okay. And this one is interesting. George, I'm recently retired and enjoying much of my free time at home with my family and the occasional drink with the boys. But my problem since retirement is my middle.
Right.
I'm not considered fat, but the belly is now a cause for concern. I've limited my eating after 6 and I've cut out beer. What else can I do?
And it is a cause for concern. And I'm glad he recognizes it too, because we talk about two different types of distribution when it comes to fat, right? So, there's the distribution that is stored more around the abdomen, A for abdomen, A for apple shaped.
Okay.
And then we have the other distribution that's stored more around your hips and your butt and your thighs. And that's called gynoid. Gynecologists, women tend to store like that. So that's your gynoid distribution. And the apple distribution, the android distribution, tends to have a higher risk of stroke and cardiovascular disease than the more thick distribution that happens around the hips. That is more resistant to moving around in circulation than the fat that's stored around your thorax and your abdominal cavity.
Okay.
So it's definitely something that we need to address, and we need to address it early to reduce the risk of coronary artery disease. So I would think that the main thing that's happened with this individual is that, when they were at work, they were active, they were moving around the office. If they were in an office environment, maybe they had a more active job, and their activity level was balancing out with the food they ate on a regular basis.
Okay.
And now maybe their habits haven't changed much as far as the nutrition is concerned, but the activity levels dropped off a little bit, and now we're seeing this creep where the weight is starting to come on. From the perspective of alcohol, alcohol tends to lead to more of this abdominal fat being stored. But you can still have a drink every now and then. But I would think the thing for him is to just find an activity program that he enjoys, because the best activity program is one that you're going to stick to. You're not going to stick to it if you don't enjoy it. Get out there and do whatever makes you feel good. But to try to get back some of that activity that would be lost with retirement.
Okay. So those are 3 questions on weight management that, it spans a very wide spectrum.
Right.
How can we manage or monitor, rather, our progress?
Well, I like people to weigh every day. And people say, oh, you don't be on the scale every day. Weigh every day. Now, there's nothing wrong with jumping on the scale every day, because I think what tends to happen is that your eyes can trick you sometimes. You're getting up, you're getting dressed, you're looking in the mirror every day, and before you know, 6 months have passed and you've gained 10 pounds. And it almost happened like an insidious creep. You didn't even realize it was happening, right? But if I'm getting on that scale every day, 175 today, 176. I can see it in objective, real numbers. I can see my weight creeping up and creeping up. And I have a chance to head it off before it gets to the point now where I go from 175 to 200.
I'm embarrassed.
What, you don't like the scale? Or
I
you
don't.
told people not to get on the scale?
I don't own a scale.
But I mean, you may not necessarily have a weight management problem, right? So it really is about knowing who you are. And if you find that you're a person that, you know, when you don't pay attention to it, your weight creeps on, having a tool like that, just a normal, it doesn't have to be expensive, a normal bathroom scale where you get on it every morning and you can maintain your weight, or you can see when it's starting to creep so that you can do something about it.
I'll share a little secret with you. And yes, it's national television, so the secret really and truly doesn't stay with us.
Right.
But I've managed my weight through the years, through my clothes.
Okay.
I don't replace because they don't fit. If they start to feel a little too tight, it tells me something's wrong.
Right.
And that's how I've been guided over the years. I can't say to someone that I believe that this is natural. I just think that if I feel uncomfortable in the clothing, I'm going to readjust how I eat or how active I am so that I can maintain it. But I think like anyone else, if I ate from ham, lamb, jam, wine to iodine and did nothing, I could be a lot bigger.
Yeah. And you have to use the tools that work for you. Men tend to wear much looser clothing than women in general. So, you know, we could put on 5-10 pounds and not even notice it in our clothes. You know, women tend to wear much more close-fitting things. I have clients who tell me that they have their fit clothes and their fat clothes. You know, and when they're not in shape, they go and pull from this cupboard, and when they're in shape, they go and pull from this cupboard. And very often people, like, you know, their goal is to get back into these jeans or to get back into these tights. But I think if we can find a situation where 80 to 85% of the time we're on track, then we're not yo-yoing, as it's called. We're not going up and down and having to switch clothes and buy new clothes, etc. If we can stay on track more or less 85% of the time and still allow yourself some you know, little treat here now and then, but it's when, you know, the cheat day becomes every day. So it's macaroni pie Monday, and then it's putting the sauce Tuesday, and then and so on and so forth through the week, as opposed to mostly healthy eating through the week and maybe every now and then, you know, giving yourself a treat. That's really part of the issue, I think.
I was going to say has, but I think it's obvious that lifestyle has changed the way we eat and the way that we live. In your estimation, how has lifestyle changed us? And is there any way of us turning it back?
And that's a really good question. I think if I had to answer that question in one word, I would say convenience. And that's one of the things that has changed for Barbadian society, and I think almost every society out there in the world. I used to walk to school. Right? Now parents don't want to risk their children walking to school, and with good reason sometimes. I used to walk to school every day and walk back home. After school, I would play basketball until the sun set. Nowadays, there's a pressure to get your kids into universities abroad, so they have after-school lessons and so on and so forth. And then there's all the devices now. Rather than going out to a fete, I could watch the whole fete on my phone. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's posting and posting. And I think the convenience for accessing amenities and everyday things where we don't even have to go anywhere. We can almost do everything from our couch, even shopping now. Well, everything's online. And also the convenience of quick and easy, tasty food. Don't get it wrong. That food tastes good.
It does.
The combination of fat and salt and sugar tastes good, and it's very convenient. And a lot of times it's, again, accessible from your device. Before, you might have had to walk to the shop and spend 2 hours cooking and so on and so forth. But I think the convenience of modern day life is one of the issues, and we have to find ways of making it inconvenient sometimes, so we're forced to do more physical activity.
Well said. Now, is there any tool that you'd like to give us as a guide, especially for our younger ones coming up? Because we lead by example. Is there any tool or guide that you'd like to point out for young persons out there to chart for themselves a daily routine, something that they can, easily stay on?
Yeah, I think one of the good things about the devices now is that fitness is accessible, and it's accessible for free in a lot of cases, right? So again, rather than me trying to give everybody something that is going to work broadly across the board, it's broadly across the scope, is to say to you, what do you like doing? So what is your favorite activity, Kimberly? Okay, if that's your favorite activity, that's the one that you're more likely to stick with, because consistency is the key, right? They tell us that it takes about 3 months for physical activity to become a habit for persons. So if I'm jumping into this program here and not liking it, and stopping jumping into this program here and not liking it, I'm never going to get anywhere. So let me first start out by trying to identify what sort of activity I like doing.
Right.
And once I identify that activity, I can go online now, and the content is free. Many years ago, I was listening to a podcast just like this, and the guy said fitness is going to become commoditized, where advertisers are giving away the content. And it's not exactly like that, but creators are making money through advertising on YouTube, so they can put up all their content for free. And you have some of the leading proponents in the fitness industry just giving away workouts on YouTube. Obviously, from my perspective, I would love people to come to the gym. But if you can't access it because it's too far for you, or you can't afford it, and you can find a creator who's giving you workouts along a line that you would like, whether that's kettlebell training or HIIT workouts or whatever, find a person you like that's providing the content that you enjoy and that you can stick to. I will say, if you can have a quick consult with a trained fitness professional to help you determine the efficacy of some of these programs, because the good thing about it being online is that it's accessible for free, but the bad thing is that anybody can do it. There are no restrictions, and there's a lot of content out there that isn't really that great and isn't really appropriate for everybody from a fitness and health perspective. So get your maybe pay a personal trainer for one session and have them go through with you and identify some creators who are doing good work out there in the fitness industry, and there are quite a few of them, and find that program that works for you and stick with it.
You've ever had a client that came to you and said, okay, I joined the gym because the company got gym membership, but I hate exercising. I don't like exercising. George, how you gonna get me to exercise?
Right. And that happens, that happens more often than you think. A lot of time we do a lot of corporate programming, and so the companies are out there. And I want to say that we have enough data now to show how successful these corporate fitness initiatives are. We can show that the persons who visit twice a week do better than the persons who visit once a week, and the people who visit 3 times a week do better than the ones who visit twice. And we can show that through reductions in body weight, reductions in BMI, blood cholesterol, blood glucose, across the board. So the companies recognize the benefit of it, and they'll pay for their persons to come. But because I ain't really invested myself financially, I just there because I can't get the money in my hand, basically. So in those cases, we say, okay, look, use the gym as a tool. If tennis is your thing, use the gym to get better at tennis. If you like walking on the beach, use the gym to get better at walking. If you just want to play with your grandchildren a little bit more, use the gym as a tool to do the activities that you really enjoy, rather than seeing it as a means in and of itself, where like I come into the gym to come to the gym, I don't really enjoy it. I come into the gym so I can make my body better for the activities that I really do enjoy when I get out of here to go and do.
One of the things that I've experienced in going to the gym, and no, I wasn't forced to go. I actually felt the need, because my body felt like an old car, and it was sluggish. And I got up one day and I said, there's a reason why it feels sluggish, because you feel heavier. Sometimes you don't see it. But then, remember I mentioned I don't own a scale? I went to your gym for the first time, and I weighed, and then they did this thing where they check your fat, they pull it, and they put this thing on it, like if you're supposed to be, and I realized I gained weight. And you're right, I did not see it at the time. The clothes were a little tight,
Right.
but they were still fitting. And ever since that experience, it's changed me since then. So that's one of the things that I attribute to trying to stay on track or getting back on track, because this is, I'm not going to say how many years, this is many years ago that I joined the gym then. And, you know, I've gone through my moments where you gain a little here, you drop a little there, but something triggers you from the way your body feels. And I think what we should leave with persons is the positive physical feeling that you get when you get a good workout, whether it's aerobics, whether it is spin class, yoga, you name it.
I think that recent fitness trends seem to be very heavily focused on the aesthetic, about looking a particular way. And, you know, we all have different challenges in life and different genetic makeup, and not everyone is able to be 110-pound twiggy stick. You know, some of us are a little bit bigger, and that's just how we're built. But even for those bigger persons, we see that physical activity has a tremendous impact on their lives.
Exactly.
So even if you start out in the obese category and you start to exercise, it reduces your risk factors, even when you don't lose weight. Just the actual act of increasing your physical activity. And everybody's going to have a different motivation. But know that if you start to move more, your body's going to feel better, it's going to move better, and it's going to perform better. And that is the motivation right there. You're going to have more energy for your family. You're going to have more energy at work. You're going to live a little bit longer. And not only are you going to live a little bit longer, but those additional years is going to have fewer incidents of illness. We say, you know, more reduce morbidity and mortality. So just get up and move, and don't feel like any pressure to be perfect about it. Do whatever you can, whenever you can, a little bit every day, until you get to where you feel like it's become a habit for you and where you can sustain it over the long term.
Fantastic. So that's a good way to tune up the body, yeah?
Absolutely.
And keep things going. George, we must do this again.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. And I must say that you don't look a day older than when I first saw you come to the gym 10 days ago.
Oh, boy. Look out.
Right.
Well, you need to tune in and tune up next time. Wait and see. I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is. I'm going to go buy a scale. That's the first thing. Then I'm actually going to visit a gym. We'll see what happens next. Pray for me on the next Tune In and Tune Up.